Johannesburg skuld sy krediteure 'n verstommende 25 miljard rand. Die stad het egter net kontant reserves van amper 4 miljard rand en het boonop verhogings aan werkers beloof wat dit eenvoudig nie kan nakom nie. Hoe sleg is die stand van sake? Die adjunkminister van finansies, Ashor Sarupen, sit die oorkant by om dit te beantwoord. Ashor, so Minister Enoch Golongwana wrote a letter to the City of Johannesburg's management to sort of set the scene for how dire the situation is with regard to the finances. The letter gets leaked, but can you give us an idea? How bad are we talking?
So the City of Johannesburg is in deep financial straits. There's no two ways about it. The National Treasury, at least since 2024, has consistently been writing to municipalities, so Joburg's not the only one, about the state of their problems and to try to get on top of them to put the right political pressure into the system. We've taken drastic steps such as withholding equitable share from municipalities, particularly ones who weren't paying their water boards. But Johannesburg in particular, and let me paint the picture. Outstanding creditors has increased 48% over the last 2 years. Liquidity issues are creeping up. At the end of the 2024/5 financial year, they had 3.9 billion rand in cash and cash equivalents, but 25.2 billion rand in creditors. That's a liquidity crisis right there. In terms of liquidity ratios, it's fallen from 86.6% in 2022/3 to 82% in 2024/5, which means that their ability to meet short-term liabilities is now in doubt. Debt to revenue is up 29% over the same period. Unauthorized expenditure grew from 4.7 billion in 2020/21 to 12.9 billion in 2023/4. I could go on and on, but I mean, I keep notes on all the metros, but
it sounds like you're saying that the metro is bankrupt.
What I'm saying is that they are not collecting enough revenue from what they bill to meet their financial commitments, that their financial management is leading to a point of no return. And that is why the National Treasury took some harsh action. The Minister of Finance wrote that harsh letter. And it's not, we do routinely, as I say, write to municipalities that are in distress, and there are many. But it was quite an important moment for the City of Johannesburg.
When city management, or when the mayor says it's not perhaps management's fault, people are not paying rates and taxes, so what can we do? What's your response to that?
Firstly, you need accurate billing. That's be a good place to start. Bill people for what they're actually using. The City of Johannesburg's IT systems leave, again, much to be desired. And so accuracy of billing determines your payment rate. Then secondly, you have to collect. The City of Cape Town's payment rate is not 82%, for example. It frequently gets into the 90s. And it wasn't that long ago. I was a councillor in Ekurhuleni in 2011, and our collection rate was 93%. So, and in the city with far more informal settlements and so on. So firstly, bill people correctly, and then collect the revenue.
If you're saying that, perhaps we're not going to venture into the bankrupt discussion or call it that, but I mean, the situation is dire. But if you're saying that we're nearing a point of no return, what does that mean for service delivery?
So let me give you an example of what it means for service delivery. Johannesburg Water bills 9 billion rand a year to the residents of Joburg, but they receive back from the city 1 billion rand. And so where's the rest of the money? It's going into the support function of the municipality, it's going into salaries and so on, and not into Joburg Water itself to deal with the water crisis. And that's why you end up with what you have. And what we're seeing now with water issues in Johannesburg up and down is the chronic underinvestment in maintenance of the services, in new infrastructure and so on. So what it means for services is that without major changes, and the Treasury has a program to try to push some of these changes into our big metros, we are going to have this perpetual problem with service delivery.
Let's talk about the wages for some of the municipal workers. This has also been an issue, the increase that they've been promised. The mayor even said, we can't go back on that. It's more than a political discussion. That was a promise made. But can the city afford that increase?
Well, based on the current numbers, they cannot. And in the leaked letter, and it's regrettably leaked, but the minister made it very clear that this is one of the many financial risks to the municipality. The Treasury at the technical level has also made it clear. So they have got to make rational financial decisions if they want to ensure that the city remains financially viable. And making promises that you can't keep is not a good way to do that.
You also referred to the letter, harsh words, and it came out very strongly. But what can Treasury realistically do in a case like this?
Well, in the letter, we threatened to withhold their equitable share. And it's not the first time we've done this. Since 2024, we have done this routinely to municipalities who aren't paying Eskom and their water boards, their pay-as-you-earn over to SARS or pension funds, and to try to correct the behavior. So that's one of the mechanisms that we've used in multiple municipalities across the countries. For the Metro specifically, we are actually taking it a step further. We're running a program called Metro Trading Services Reform Program. And what we're trying to do is make sure that money that's billed by utilities like water, energy, anything that you build for on a variable basis, that the revenue goes back into that service rather than into the general municipal account and then spends on everything except that service. So those are the kinds of things that we're now doing to try to get our cities functioning again at a treasury level. We've put in incentives and we've also put in trackers on a dashboard to see how far along they are in ring fencing their water revenue, for example, investing in water infrastructure and so on. So that's a long-term program that we're trying to set into place to make sure that our cities don't continue as they are.
So are you saying that that money will be ring-fenced for these services, that the city can't dip into that to pay for salaries?
Amongst other things, they should pay for their water salaries. So the 9 billion that Joburg Water bills, or similar in eThekwini or even in Cape Town, when you get billed for water, our position is, and our Trading Services Reform Program says, the money must go back into water. And the city, so every cent that you pay for water must be used on water. It must be used to pay the water board. It must be used to maintain the infrastructure, sort out the leaking pipes. It must be used to build future infrastructure so that you don't have crises. And only if there's a surplus after all of that is done can you then declare a surplus and that gets returned to the municipality. Whereas the current model, the council basically says, well, it doesn't matter that we bill billions for water, we'll just give a fraction of that back to the water unit. You get to a point, it almost begins to look comical in terms of service delivery. The water entities, for example, in some of our cities, have to phone someone in corporate service and say, hey, can we borrow a bakkie to go and sort out a leaking water pipe? The water entity should have its own bakkie to go and sort out the leaking water pipe. And that's the kind of situation we want to get to with the Trading Services Reform Program.
Talk about administration. Johannesburg being placed under administration, is that a solution?
So the Section 139 of the Constitution placing municipalities under administration is the last resort. Ultimately, you don't want to try to use bureaucracy to undo democracy. So people have made voting decisions, they've made choices, and the choices have policy outcomes, as we see, negative and positive. So it is a last resort intervention. If the City of Johannesburg doesn't meet certain milestones, and depending, the Minister and the Mayor had, I believe, a productive meeting on Friday. Depending on the outcomes of that, obviously, all pathways remain open. But the truth is that when you look at interventions, Johannesburg needs actually proper leadership and management. And administration hasn't always met the goals that we would have wanted it to meet.
So it's not as though Treasury or national government can step in with a big pile of cash and say, we'll sort out your financial issues.
No 1 through 9 intervention has ever come with cash. As we don't come and give them money and say, here's money, your problem solved. We say, here's a financial recovery plan, you've got to implement it this way and so on. And so we've had variable success with these interventions of placing municipalities under administration. It hasn't always worked out. And so it's not a silver bullet. We need some legal reform. There are certain things that we need from Parliament. For example, the ability to take control of the municipality's bank account when it's placed under administration. We don't have that power right now. And so you're basically, we can appoint an administrator, but you've got the same people in the finance department who cause the
money in the till, essentially.
Effectively. So we need more powers from Parliament's interventions as well.
How does Johannesburg compare to other metros that is perhaps in a similar or worse situation? I mean, is it the worst?
So a lot of the metros are in distress, except for the City of Cape Town, largely. Mangaung is under national administration right now and has been for several years. And there are some serious challenges in Mangaung as well, but a lot like Johannesburg. Tshwane is in a slightly better set of circumstances and doesn't have the same concerns as Johannesburg, but still not good. Ekurhuleni, well, we've seen everything coming out from the Madlanga Commission that shows us that there's serious corruption concerns. eThekwini, the presidential intervention there seems to have yielded some results. And so we are seeing some improvements in eThekwini as well. Buffalo City is is also in a bit of trouble. And then Nelson Mandela Bay, the unauthorized, fruitless and wasteful expenditure numbers, they've been skyrocketing. So we've got problems in the metros. I'm not going to sugarcoat it and say this is the worst, that each of them have their own unique set of problems.
Ashor, thank you very much. And
my pleasure.